I've been going down memory lane a lot lately. My parents were divorced when I was 5 years old, and I had to bounce back and forth between them. And it ended up being a lot of schools. For some reason, my siblings were spared that pain. You know, they didn't have to bounce back and forth. They stayed in Detroit. So anyway, I remember being in judge's chamber. It was some kind of family divorce court thing or whatever, custody, whatever, I don't know. And I remember there was a man sitting behind a desk. I didn't know who he was, but then I realized much later he was a judge. And my dad and stepmother were there. And the judge basically asked me where I wanted to live. Did I want to live with my mother or my father and stepmother? Honestly, I didn't know what to answer. I do remember being very afraid. I just remember not wanting to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't know what to do. I was so confused. I didn't even know where I was at the time. So then the judge didn't push it. He just asked me if I wanted a soda pop. I couldn't even speak, but I shook my head yes or something. And so his secretary, or whatever she was, she went and got me one. And then she escorted me to another room. And that's where she just sat with me quietly. I remember she held my hand, asked me if I wanted to talk, and I just shook my head no, or I didn't want to. So it seemed like eons before my stepmother and dad got out of that other room talking to the judge, but it probably was only minutes. To a kid, everything's like forever. So I just wanted to leave. And then after that, I had to go back to my mom's. I guess what they decided was that I was going to live with both parents, my mom, my dad. So when I was in Detroit, we were living on, and boy, I can remember every address. We lived in 3 different homes in Detroit. 2 were duplex homes, the upper home, bottom home, and 1 was just 1-story home. It was on Ferry Street. It was 8636 Ferry Street, Ferry. So we were living there in the bottom home, and somebody, I don't know who was living upstairs, some lady. And we were close to St. I can never say this right to this day, an old Catholic church, a beautiful one, St. Hyacinth's Church. It originally was just a church, but at that time there was a school they had built or something. That's where I attended kindergarten, okay? Then sometime later, my mother and grandmother teamed up to purchase a duplex home. The house on Quinn Street was 8026 Quinn. Later in life, I had my husband take me around Detroit to see all the places we lived, and because I won't go in there alone anymore to Detroit. And we found that the one on Ferry Street burned down, the neighbors told us, and also our nice little brick home on Quinn Street burned down. Another neighbor across the street told us that. It was a corner house at the end of the street, closest to Van Dyke. And I remember it being a beautiful brick home. There was an upstairs where my brothers, my mother, and I lived, and my sister stayed with my grandmother downstairs. But I remember going to that neighborhood too, and I thought, wow, this is so pretty around here, because back then everything was clean and neat. It wasn't run down yet. And when I lived there, my brothers and I attended Our Lady Queen of Heaven, which was closer to where we were living then. And I attended first grade to 5th grade. It was nice. It was really nice. Later on, we ended up moving to a third house on Kilbourne Street near Gratiot Avenue and closer again to downtown Detroit. But I'm not going to get into that one until maybe a second video, because I don't want this video to be too long. And there's a lot of stories that happened when we lived there. We were robbed and just all kinds of stuff. So that'll be another video. I honestly don't remember where my sister went to school, but then she was 4 years younger, so she probably, I don't know. I'd have to ask her. So after 5th grade, incidentally, my parents would pitch in for Catholic school whenever they had the money to pay for it for us kids. When the money wasn't there, we went to public school. So after that, though, I had to go to public school because the money wasn't there, and public school was free. And the school I went to with my brothers and stuff was called, we referred to it as just Grant Elementary School. The full name of it was Ulysses S. Grant School. And it was about 3 blocks away from us on Stockton. And we kids would walk there. We even had to cross over Van Dyke, which was a pretty big road. It was kind of scary every time we did it. Yeah, that was kind of bizarre thinking about it. We had no adults. Always got to school safe and back. It's kind of weird. That is a busy street, Van Dyke Avenue. But anyway, so we went to Grant Elementary School, and I attended 6th grade there. And there I had one problem, and it mortified me. I was sitting in a class. I don't even remember what class it was. I think it was English. I don't know. But there was a male teacher. And when he did roll call, calling our names, he got to my name. And he started snickering and making fun of my last name and laughing at it because my last name's Canary. And I love my last name. That's why I kept it. When I got married to my late husband, I hyphenated it with my maiden name. I will always keep it. I mean, we have our own heritage behind that. And after he made fun of me, the whole class started laughing at me. It was like a domino effect. They were just all laughing. Anyway, something went off inside of me. I was very young, and I remember we had those desks, that it was a chair connected to the front desk where you can lift up the lid of the desk and put things in it. I had my books on top. I remember getting up, and I took my hands and I just knocked all my books on the floor. And I stormed out, and I slammed the door. And I didn't show tears the whole time I was in class, but they were coming. I walked all the way home, 3 blocks away, crying. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell anyone. It was just that one incident. And I went back to school the next day, and after that, though, he didn't make fun of my name. He didn't say anything to me. He knew he was in the wrong. I figured that out when I became an adult. So he was lucky that nobody ratted on him. I didn't tell my parents. They might have called the principal. Who knows? And I toughed it out. And I got my books back. He had picked them up and saved them for me. He never apologized, though. So I finished that grade. It was 6th grade. And then we had summer vacation. And then I went to live with my dad. And he was living in about 2.5 hours away in a small country town called Clinton, Michigan. He was married to my stepmother. So I went to a lot of schools. I was bouncing back and forth. So after 6th grade at Grant Elementary School, I went to live with my dad in a town called Clinton Township, just a small country town. And my stepmother at the time, she owned just a 10-unit motel that she ran, and their house was next to it. And at that time, my dad was working in Detroit. My dad was commuting back and forth for work in Detroit. It took like maybe 2 hours or something to get there, 2.5 hours. And he'd work downtown Detroit and then back again, to Clinton town. What he did was he worked on those sky-rise tall buildings in Detroit. He was a construction worker. He also had his own side business in carpentry. So yeah, he would work on the high-rise buildings, building them, as well as, I don't know all he did, but I guess repairing, remodeling some of the older buildings or something. I don't know. But that was his job. And I know he was gone. He seemed to be gone all day long. I think he worked like 10 and 12 hours. And plus adding the commute there and back, that's like, 4 or 5 hours total. So yeah, he was a workaholic, and that's what he did for his main job. Later, he bought 5 acres of land in Tecumseh, Michigan. I love that town. That was a beautiful country town. He bought 5 acres, and on the weekend, he single-handedly started building a big colonial house. He did it himself, except for the electrical and plumbing. So, he worked Monday through Friday in Detroit, and then on the weekends, it took him 3 years to build it because he only had 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, to work on building that house in Tecumseh. Maybe I'll share it in a different video in the near future. I want to show you the picture of it. I don't have the inside pictures. I did go to a real estate site to get the front view, and I can explain the whole layout inside the house. I remember every detail of it. Anyway, where was I? So I'm going to 7th grade now at my dad's in Clinton, Michigan. Now, that was a very difficult school for me to go to because of one bully girl. And I was by this time in life, I was crippling shy. Even the teachers told my parents, they asked why I don't talk much. I just did my homework and went to school, and I was quiet. I was painfully shy and afraid, a lot of times. And for good reason, even at this school. What happened was the bully of the school, I'll just name her first name, was Pam. She was tall. She kind of was built like a guy. So this was the first time that I ever rode a school bus to school and back home. They had those out in the small country town. So on the way home one day, there was like 3 of us students waiting in the back seats for, the school driver to come on the bus. He wasn't there yet. And all the other students, they weren't there yet. We were like the first ones. But here she comes, and she's walking towards the back of the bus. And I looked up at her, and she just took her fist and hauled off and punched me square in the face. I never talked to her before. Never. I remember it hurt like hell. It was a miracle I didn't get a bloody nose. It was kind of more on the bottom of my lip type, and part of my nose. But I don't know. I just remember it hurt like hell. It hurt like hell. But I didn't cry. I wanted to cry, but I just held it all in because I wasn't going to cry in front of her. After that incident, I went to school, but I always ate. I would go to the cafeteria and get my food, and then I would take off and go to the girls' restroom, and I would lock myself behind a stall door, and I would eat my lunch on the toilet. And yeah, felt safe. It was safer. I was really afraid, to do what you got to do, And the library had these like big round tables in the center of the library, and then you had all the bookshelves. And I remember I discovered they had a desk way back in the corner behind one of these bookshelves full of books. And it was just kind of like those desks we had in school, that I told you about at Grant Elementary. It was the chair connected to the desk. And I would go back there and hide. Yeah, sometimes I'd grab a book and look at a map of Detroit, just staring at the letters Detroit. That's weird. I don't know. I guess I was depressed. I was afraid and depressed, I think. And that's what I did. And I just wouldn't go to class, though. But nobody saw me back there. The librarian didn't see me. Most of the time, there wasn't even anybody in the library. So, yeah, that was weird. And after that grade, 7th grade, I was sent back to Detroit to live with my mother. And I went to Grant Elementary School again, first for 6th grade and then 8th grade at Grant Elementary School. And that wasn't bad. I made some friends that time. I don't remember any problems with that. So fast forward then, after 8th grade, I had to go back and live with my dad and stepmother. By this time, my dad had moved with my stepmother to Tecumseh, Michigan. He had already completed the house, and we moved in there. And that's another story I'll share in another video. I'll show a picture of it, tell you what the floor plan. I remember everything in that house. I'll explain it all. Anyway, I just was so happy there. In another town, a country town, a little bit bigger than all the other towns. Not as big as Ann Arbor, but it was a pretty busy town called Adrian, Michigan. And we were about 20 minutes drive from there. And my parents paid for me to go to a pretty prestigious all-girls Catholic school. We had students, it was all for just girls. And they had dorms for girls that came from all over the world. They had rich parents sending their kids from, I remember I made a good friend from Venezuela. There was, I think, one from UK. The other ones mostly were from around the United States. And so they lived there. They lived there in their dorms. I got to commute back and forth, which I liked better. My stepmother would take me and another student there. She drove us there every day. And my friend's mother would pick us up and bring us home. That was actually a very good school. I don't remember having any problems there except one. And it was a minor one, really. So there were some girls from the west side of Detroit, by the way, that were living there at the school and attending same. It's funny, too, the east side of Detroiters, the kids hated the west side Detroiters. I don't know why. Growing up, I learned that later. I don't know, they were just rival enemies. We were on the east side, so the east side kids felt they were tougher than the west side, I guess, which I think they were. I don't know. So anyway, I only had one little incident. So we had a girl from Arizona who I really liked. She was living there. And there was another, I'll just give first names. There was another bully, a tall girl, not bad looking, but she was skinny and tall and gangly looking. Her name was Sunny. And that was her first name. And then the other three, I forget their names, but there was like 3, 4, 5 of them. Now, Pam was really nice, and she was quiet. She just hung out with them. And anyway, Sunny walks up to me, and I'm holding my books, right? And she just knocks my hands, and I dropped my books, fell on the floor and spread all over the place. I got really pissed off because one thing, I was working hard in the library earlier that day for my history paper I had to get done the next day. And she had screwed it all up. I had to put it all together. It just pissed me off. And I just started yelling. I decided to act like a maniac. And I started screaming at them. I was running after them. At first, Sunny wasn't fazed, but then they started backing up, and I thought, wow, this really works, right? I guess I bluffed them. Amazingly, there was no nuns around or after school, but we were near a stairwell. And I liked Pam, the girl from Arizona. She was really sweet and nice. I don't know why she hung out with them. She was always quiet. But I went to turn around abruptly, and I bumped into her, and she was right at the top of the stairs, and she fell down them. Now, thank God they were only like 4 or 5 steps. They were those kind of stairs that go down maybe 5 steps and then to the right, another 5, and then, not completely like 15 stairs or something. At first, Sunny wasn't fazed, but then they started backing up, and I thought, wow, this really works, right? I guess I bluffed them. It worked. I remember running down really fast, and because I liked her, I remember, and I just said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" She was just dazed. She never got hurt. Thank God. That was just an accident. But yeah, I liked her. She was really nice. So anyway, then after 9th grade, I went to 10th grade. A good school, finished all that. But I remember during 10th grade, I was walking. I stayed after class in the library doing some research, and then I kind of left the school late. My parents, I called them. They were going to pick me up later. And I was walking down the hall, and this boy, he looked like a scrawny little boy, but that was an all-girls Catholic school. No boys that attended it. I don't know, he was some stray that came off the street and was walking down the hall. And I'm standing against the wall, and he just comes up and punches me in the gut. That's the second time I was punched in school. And then he ran away. And that hurt like hell. I just remember that did hurt. Get punched in the gut, that hurts. And once again, I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. So I finished 10th grade, and then I was living with my parents in Tecumseh, and they didn't have to drive me to that school anymore each day and back, but I was to go. They were living in Tecumseh, Michigan, and I was to attend 11th grade, which was a public school. And I have to admit that was the best school I ever went to, high school. I really loved it there because when I got there, first of all, that school had no gangs, no bully cliques, nothing. And it had a really tough and good curriculum. I remember my first day of school there, and I was really scared. I was shy. I was painfully shy. I only got bolder when I became a nurse because I knew years later when I became an RN, I had to be more outgoing. But most of my life, I was extremely shy, but very distrusting of people. I was not naive. I was just shy. So anyway, I went to the school, and right away, all the guy students and all the girls were introducing themselves to me. I've never experienced that before in my life. Saying, hi, how are you? Nice to have you here, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I made friends with them really fast. And when the weather was warm outside towards the spring and summer before we went home for summer break, we would sit outside at our favorite tree, the guys and the girls. We'd sit around in a big circle, and we just used to rap. They called them rapping sessions back then. And someone would bring up a bizarre topic to talk about, and we would just discuss it. And then we went back to classes after lunch. Anyway, it was at Tecumseh High School that I got my driver's education training. And then my dad helped me find a vehicle, and I bought a little used yellow Pinto. Kept on falling apart. It lasted a while, though. My dad kept on fixing it up and stuff and repairing it. He was like a jack of all trades. He was amazing. I met some really nice girls. So basically, I decided for some reason after 11th grade, I wanted to go back to Detroit to graduate at Laura F. Osborne High School there on 7 Mile and Hoover Road. My parents said I could. I was old enough to make that decision because I don't know. I guess I miss kids from the old hood. See, 7 Mile and Hoover in Detroit. It was called Laura F. Osborne. But when I got there, I realized there's only 3 girlfriends that I knew that were going to high school with me there for senior year. I'm asking them, where's this person? Where's that person? They all dropped out. They dropped out of high school or OD'd from drugs. They all got into that drug scene. Thank God I never did that, right? I really didn't. I mean, they were into heavy drugs. I'm not going to lie. I just smoked a joint with friends much later in life and had brownies with it. But no, I was not a druggie. I don't like drugs. I don't like addictions. I wasn't even a drinker of alcohol. To this day, I don't like the taste of any alcohol. Not even wine. That's supposed to be good for you. I don't like it. Those kids, however, including myself, including my brothers, including my sister later, including my parents, this was before they knew cigarettes were so bad. We all smoked. I don't know. I think I'm starting to believe that human beings, as wonderful as they've been made by God, I think they have a propensity towards addictions, be it food, alcohol, cigarettes, vaping, illicit drugs. I don't know. It just seems like people do have that propensity towards addictions. You have to be careful. But at the same time, you strip away all of it and it seems like what's enjoyable, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I've watched through the years, and just about everyone's addicted to something, yet they'll point their finger at other people for their addiction. Somebody might, drink too much wine a day, but yeah, they'll point their finger at somebody that's doing whatever, So, yeah, human beings are flawed. We're very judgmental, hypocritical, and we don't even follow our own advice now, do we? I just thought I'd throw that in there. It's just something that I've kind of observed through the years. I don't know. So I finished that senior year. It was so easy peasy when I got there to enroll. He told me all I had to take was 3 classes, choose the ones I wanted. And I'm thinking, what? That's crazy. I never had to pick my classes before. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, easy peasy. Home economics, theater course, and social studies. I breezed through those courses. So easy. It was so easy. And then we only had to go to school from 8 o'clock in the morning till, I think, 11:30 in the morning. And I'm like, oh, my God. We used to have to go all day to 3:30 in the afternoon. So that was like a joke. It was a big class, though. People I didn't know. It was so big they had to rent out Ford Auditorium downtown Detroit where we graduated, and they were all acting stupid. Some were passing a joint around. I think the parents were mortified. Some were bouncing beach balls through all of the seats. It was bizarre. One student, he was wearing the graduation gown, and when he got up on the stage to get his diploma, he turned real quickly and flashed. He was actually naked underneath the gown. I can't even imagine what his parents thought, if they were even there. It was crazy. In hindsight, I'm going to tell you, I am glad. I loved living at my dad's. And, when I became an adult, I moved more and more out to these smaller towns. That's what I like, country towns. I don't like inner cities. I don't like big cities. Oh, I wanted to mention one thing, though, about my dad. It was pretty amazing. My dad was never afraid of anything. He's not afraid of heights, even open heights. So he used to work downtown on those high-rise buildings. They'd stand on the scaffolding. Sometimes they had to walk on these narrow steel beams or whatever. And he showed me a picture. I wish I had that picture. But you got fired if you didn't wear a safety belt. None of the guys ratted on my dad, but he was fearless, and he didn't want one. Years later, I asked him, Dad, why didn't you wear a safety belt when he showed me that picture? He didn't really give a clear explanation. He just didn't want to wear it. He didn't like it. I guess he felt it got in his way. He had a heavy tool belt on and whatever. I don't know. I was always proud of him. He used to be a bodybuilder. There's a picture on my YouTube channel. That's me, the ugly baby. There's one little, it's in a short, one of those short videos. But yeah, he was a good-looking guy. He was slim there, but I remember he had a lot of weights, and he beefed up pretty good. There was one time when I was really little, I thought he was, I don't know, I thought he was Hercules or something. He was big. I mean, muscle-wise, and but through the years, he little by little didn't do it as much. And, I guess you shrink down after a while if you don't keep it up. He's in his early 90s, and he does still do weightlifting, but not that much. It's more for like light exercise and stuff to keep fit, but he's really too old to be doing it. So, I mean, he's not beefed up anymore. But yeah, he was really into that back in the day. I mean, he he had muscles. I mean, it was unbelievable. He was big. Yeah, so I love my dad, I was always kind of proud of him and stuff. It's sad to see, your parents getting really old now. What are you going to do? That's life. Life seems too short, too. When you're really young, you think it's not. You think, oh, my God, you've got, you feel like you've got so many years to live. Like, you feel like you're going to live, like, to be 100 or more. No, life goes by really fast. And for me, it felt like it all starts speeding up in my late 30s. Yeah, it really does. Time just flies by. I don't know why. I think it's more of a mental thing because you're really, really busy, and I don't know, just everything seems to move forward fast. I don't know why life has to be so short, but it is. It is. Don't take it for granted, man. Yeah, it's scary. It's really scary too. Pretty amazing. He also got pilot lessons to fly a small plane, and he did pick us kids up one time in Detroit. Not my little sister, she was too small, but my brothers and he took us all over, flying all over Detroit. I wasn't afraid because he was my dad. Later in life, I was a little bit afraid of flying commercial stuff and everything. He still lifts a little bit of weights, not to beef up muscles, but just for a little exercise. He's always been an exerciser. Maybe there's some ex-Detroiters out there that remember me or recognize who I am or whatever. Be great to touch base, There were good times in Detroit, too, but there were crazy times. And I can't wait for the next video because my girlfriends and I, we pulled some pranks. We pulled a bunch of pranks. All right. That's it for now. Bye. I almost forgot to mention something in my first video that I just posted today about living in the hood of Detroit, some tales there, and all the schools I had to go to. I forgot to mention that after the incident, if you listen to the video, while I was at my dad's living and I was attending Clinton School, it was for 7th grade, and after the incident of that girl who punched me, I became really scared, and this is kind of sad in a way. In hindsight, when I think about it, for any little kid to do, I was so afraid. I would take my lunch. I wouldn't eat in the cafeteria. I would take my lunch every day that we had school, and I would go into the bathroom, and I would lock the stall door in the girls' restroom, and I would sit on the toilet and eat my lunch. That's what I did every day. That's pretty pathetic, isn't it? I'm just wondering how many kids listening to this, how many adults today as kids did the same thing. I'm going to bet there's a lot. For being a child, there was a lot of emotional ups and downs. It was more just I had to try to get adjusted all the time. New kids, new schools. And I didn't talk a lot when I was a kid. Not a lot. That's what I was told. I don't remember that really. I just remember always feeling kind of isolated, kind of alone, and scared a lot of the times, But then I toughened up later in life. Now I talk too much. I do. I went from one extreme to the other, Sad. So that's the end of this video because I went all the way to 12th grade with you. The next one's going to be the robberies, the murders, that a lot of things that happened that, I'll get into that. That's a quicker video, though. The mafia, that down there, then a lot of things. So I'm done with the school, and I'll tell you some memory lane things. Okay, that's it for now. Ciao.